Hello, I'm Nathan. Starting this YouTube channel because I was kind of inspired by a couple of the other um, spirit reviewers that are on YouTube right now. Um, in particular, different spirits. So there's Scott. Scott, if you're there, hi. You're a big inspiration for me. Um, and I really want to focus in with this channel on drinking a lot of different types of spirits, things that are not, you know, super readily available, or rather, things that aren't on most people's radar for drinking. Um, I have a big focus. Probably the next few videos that I'll do will be mainly on mezcal and agave based spirits. That's kind of been my passion the last couple of years. But I also recently started really getting into rums, um, and yeah, just weird spirits in general. If it's weird, if it's out there, I'm fascinated by it. Um, I'm interested in these things mainly because I think that alcohol or spirits or wine or whatever, they're really emblematic of um, particular cultures, and they're really representative of those cultures and certain philosophies and ideas behind those cultures. You see alcohol as primary kind of aspect of a lot of different cultures and identities. They're part of religious ceremonies. You know, when you're talking about mezcal, for example, it's deeply embedded in Mexican identity and culture. And when you throw in the fact that it was heavily persecuted for so long, the identity of mezcal is something very like prideful, and it's a great thing that these days it's as celebrated as it is. Um, but I think I've mainly focused on mezcal, but you can look at so many different cultures all over the world that really celebrate their spirits, and I think there's always something there to be discovered, not just in the spirit, but it bleeds out into learning about when you're looking at these things. It bleeds out into looking at the history, looking at cultures, looking at religions, and that sort of stuff. And that sort of thing I find extremely fascinating and interesting. It's not just one thing that you learn when you look at these spirits. Um, yeah. So what I really want this to be about is like educational for you guys, but I mean, I by no means pretend to be um, an expert in these things. I've spent some time studying and learning, and before my videos, I will definitely do my due diligence and research on these topics. But I mean, for example, going back, I'm going to keep on going back to mezcal because it's what I'm most comfortable with and what I feel like I know the most. But going back to mezcal, it is a deep, deep world to get into. There's so much to learn. I mean, even some of the people that I know down Oaxaca and spend all their time down there um, with mescaleros and learning as much as they possibly can, they wouldn't even pretend to know everything about the subject because there's just so much. You're literally talking about little villages all sprinkled across Mexico that have their own traditions of making the spirit. So again, I don't pretend to uh, know everything, and I will probably say things that you know are wrong from time to time because you I don't know why this is, but when it comes to alcohol, there's a lot of bullshit out there. Um, things as simple as little phrases. You hear the phrases like beer before liquor, never been sicker, all that kind of stuff. Like they just these kind of very colloquial phrases get really embedded in our heads. But in every spirit, I feel like has this. I feel like when you're talking about mezcal, there's a lot of information out there, and people like to spread certain ideas. And you hear it and you kind of internalize it, especially when somebody seems to be coming from a position of expertise. And they might not actually know what they're talking about. So there's a lot of misinformation out there, I'm sure. But that's partially why I want to start this channel too, is like I would like to educate a little bit. But if I say things that are wrong, and people want to voice their opinions opposite to that, that's great. I love the discussion. I love learning. So like if I post a video and I say something and you don't agree with it, by all means leave it in the comments and I'll read them and I'll look into it a little deeper. But I will be going off of information that I know, and that I seem to understand. And I think I can offer a lot, especially in regards to mezcal. But once I start getting into looking at some rums and stuff, I'll definitely be looking more to you guys to kind of help me along in that journey, because I definitely have a lot to learn there. But yeah, I want this to be like a fun, educational experience both ways. And what I am going to be doing a lot of is a lot of tastings, and I want to kind of focus in on particular ideas. So probably for my next video, I'm going to do a study on different still types in Oaxaca specifically, and how those might express in the glass. So we'll do 3 different expressions, one with copper, one with a refrescadera still, and one with clay. We'll taste them, kind of go through them, and try to parse out the differences. Another thing I'd like to do is maybe do some blind tastings. I'd really like to feel like I know my spirits. Like if I taste this, like, yeah, that's that. And I think the best way to do that is to do it blind. You're not being influenced by the label and thinking that it's supposed to be a particular way. I've come from a wine world too, where I've studied for like the CMS and stuff, and I do think blind tasting is very helpful, and I don't see a lot of it in regards to spirits, which I think would be really interesting to do in this channel. So, I live with my girlfriend. I'll get my girlfriend to line up a little flight, just get her to whatever, and I'll sit down and tape the flight and kind of go through my own logic and what I'm thinking. Obviously, I know the bottles that I have, but they're all up here. I've got over 120 bottles, so there's enough variety, especially when I'm talking about mezcal. I got 60 bottles as of right now, still growing. So there's enough variety that there's a lot to go through and pick out, but I do know my bottles. Yeah, so we're going to focus mostly on mezcal going over the next few videos. And then I'd really like to get into cachaça as well. I think, again, talking about I like weird spirits. Not that cachaça is weird, but I feel like in our market, I'm in Canada, but even in the States and the world over, cachaça is not something you see a lot of. It doesn't really leave Brazil. And it's a very old spirit. It might be, a lot of people say it's the first real rum distillate was made in Brazil. Estrella is another story, but it's got a lot of history behind it, and there's a lot of it produced, and it never leaves the country. So I'd like to start looking at that. I've got pretty much all of the commercially available bottles you can get here in Canada. But I also, my girlfriend's Brazilian, so she's done me the favor of going and getting me a couple bottles too. So we've got some really interesting stuff right from there. In particular, the Salinas region in Minas Gerais, which is in a state in Brazil, where, from what I've heard from Brazilians, this is the place to get cachaça. Yeah, so we'll do a little bit of that. I'll probably be after going through some of the mezcals. I've got lots of just rums in general. The Clarins I really want to get into and play around with those with you guys. That's rum from Haiti. Clarins were what really got me into rums to begin with. Coming from the mezcal world, a lot of people call them the mezcals of rum, just the way that they're produced. And they're a really cool spirit as well, very artisanal. I like that. I think it's really fascinating. This cane to bottle, very straightforward, simple, natural production. It's makes for a lot of variety in the product. Yeah, and some other things that I'm interested in for spirits. Grappa. I find grappa very fascinating. Some brandies as well, particular Calvados. I'd like to get more into Armagnac as well. Baijus. I've got one bottle of Baiju. I'm fascinated with the production. Baiju sounds super fascinating as well, so maybe we can do some of those. Pisco as well. Pisco's not much in our market though. Yeah, and if you guys know of any kind of weird out there spirits, let me know in the comments. I'll look into it. I feel like I've scoured the internet for, again, going back to what I was talking about before, this connection between culture and alcohol. I'm always like, okay, this country, they've got to have some production there. They're making something. What are they making? Why are they making it? Like, what's the history behind it? And I scour the internet looking for that stuff all the time. So if you guys know of anything like that, let me know, and I'll look into it. It'd be great. But yeah, I'll look forward to this, and see you in the next video.